Hello, I'm Kevin Cuppett, Executive Director for Curriculum, Instruction, and Innovation in Frederick County Public Schools. And I want to welcome you to the Vision 2020 program, an FCPS TV production designed to show you what's happening here in the district. Today, the focus of our Vision 2020 is about reading. We've been doing a lot of work in the district around reading over the last couple of years, and we wanted to share that with you. I have a very distinguished panel I'm excited to have here today to talk about these initiatives. And so I'm going to ask them each to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their role and what they do here in the district. We'll start with you, Jen.
I am Jennifer Ralston. I'm the Elementary Language Arts Curriculum Specialist.
And I'm Tracy Spincola. I teach first grade at Spring Ridge Elementary.
And I'm Julie Ivins, the Assistant Principal at Waverly Elementary School.
Well, one of the things I'm very excited about with the panel today is that we have three very different perspectives on the work that we're doing. So we do a lot of things from the central office, but we always want that work to be informed by what happens in our schools and with our teachers specifically. So I'm excited that you've joined us today to share. So one of the major areas of focus that we've had, Jen, is around the incorporating researched and evidence-based practices into our reading program. And a lot of this is termed in the literature and in conversations about the science of reading. What is the science of reading? Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Sure. The science of reading comes from the fields of cognitive psychology and cognitive neuroscience. And we now have in education, we know how the brain learns to read. And through functional MRIs and through studies of the brain, we know the processes. And those processes can be summarized in the simple view of reading. Okay. And the simple view of reading is a representation of the fact that reading comprehension is a product of word recognition and language comprehension. Our job as an education system is to teach children the sub-skills underneath of each component. So we teach kids to explicitly recognize words and to become orthographic mappers. Mm-hmm. And we teach children to how their written language system works.
Okay, so even though that's a simple view of reading, we know that teaching reading is not necessarily simple. We're not trying to say that it's a simple process. You mentioned orthographic mapping. So this is a term that I've come across in the reading that I've done, and we hear a lot about it in the research. What exactly does orthographic mapping mean?
So it is the mental process that we use to retrieve words when we're reading. So it requires knowledge of the alphabetic principle, and it requires the reader to map sounds to letters in order to recognize a word automatically.
Okay, and I believe what the research says is the best way to make orthographic mappers is to have that systematic and explicit instruction in those areas that matter, right? Yes. And which is the direction that we're heading with our instructional program. That's fantastic. I'm really excited to share about some of the very intensive training that we've had available for teachers. We implemented this year for the first time a course called LETTERS, which stands for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. And the LETTERS course is being offered in the district in both in MSDE credit version as well as a Hood College. We worked with them in a partnership to get graduate credit. And Tracy, I understand that you've been one of our LETTERS participants. What do you think of the course?
Well, I've been loving the course, and just as Jen was speaking about, that it's based on the neuroscience of what the brain is doing when it's learning to read. And so I think that gives teachers the confidence that if they're employing the strategies through the course, they know that they're delivering best practices to their students. And I think, too, that it's going to be beneficial to teachers who maybe in their undergraduate work didn't have that experience, or maybe in their own personal learning to read experiences, they didn't have that kind of instruction. And so now this course is providing that to them.
Yeah. Anything about the way the course runs? We know it's an online module type based approach. Talk to us about, from your experience as, what's it like going through this type of a course?
It's very easy because, like you said, it's an online course, so you can do that in the comfort of your own home as your schedule permits.
Okay.
So you have that flexibility, that you have weekly assignments that you're finishing and having to also create posts about, but it's, again, at your own leisure throughout the week.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's part of the learning where the course directs you to apply this to your classroom. Mm-hmm. And so I believe you kind of keep track of some students as part of that. Tell us a little bit about that.
So you have 3 students that they asked you to identify at the beginning of the course, and then throughout the weekly sessions, you are asked to do some kind of bridge to learning, and you implement different things. Like we've given them assessments, or we've asked them to complete other type of assignments, and then you keep those and you show the progress that they are making through implementing the strategies that they're teaching.
So this is definitely a course that teachers can impact what they do in the classroom. It's not just all theory, it's very practical as well.
Absolutely, and very easy to do.
So another big step that we've taken to introduce evidence-based practices into our classroom has been around the implementation of a phonics program. The program's called Phonics Suite. There's a program called Countdown for Kindergarten, Blast for first grade, and HD Word for our second grade. And at Waverly, where you are, we've had a field test in place since the beginning of the year. Can you tell us a little bit about the program and how it's going?
Sure. I'm super proud of our teachers. We started with the Phonics Suite at the very beginning of the school year, and our teachers really just took it and ran with it. It's very appealing for them because all of the materials for that systematic, explicit, foundational skills instruction are available and ready for them to roll with. So we have seen 2 major benefits from the administrative perspective. One is how it's really informing instruction and what our reading block looks like. So as our teachers are getting further into the program and they're using that multisensory approach, we're starting to see it live outside of this foundational skills block and move over into our reading instruction. And so as our teachers are offering that balanced reading diet, things like decodable texts are a little bit less scary. It's organically being woven into instruction when kids need it and is appropriate. The second major benefit that I've seen is that on-demand professional learning that comes with it. So prior to each unit of instruction, our teachers get the background knowledge of how words work and how we need to be teaching our students to read. And that professional learning has been able to inform everything from the day-to-day instruction all the way up to, the big picture processes that we have in our school building, like the accelerated learning process. Right. So as teachers are coming to the table each week to talk about students and their unique reading needs, they're able to pull some of that foundational skills data, plus that professional learning on knowing how to teach our readers and put those together to design differentiated, specialized programs for small groups of students to get them to read.
Well, this has certainly been an exciting development. I want to talk a little bit more about this. We're actually going to be fortunate enough to have a teacher perspective, and so we're going to hear from Tracy right after we come back from break.
The 2020 census will begin on April 1st. Every residential home in the United States will receive correspondence in March of 2020 with instructions on how to complete the census. Residents of the country have until fall 2020 to complete the form online, by phone, or with a census taker. Go to 2020census.gov for more information.
So welcome back to Vision 2020. Today's episode is about reading, and wanted to thank you for talking to us a little bit about, Julie, about the Phonics Suite program and the implementation at Waverly. And as I mentioned before break, Tracy at Spring Ridge has been using the Blast program, which is in grade 1. You want to tell us a little bit about what you think about the program?
Yes, and I'd just like to piggyback on something that Julie said about how it's going across the curriculum. And one thing she didn't mention was how students are taking that into their writing. So they're using those kinesthetic approaches that they learned through the BLAST program, and they're implementing them in their writing as well. So every day we have lessons that we project on our Promethean board, and there is a visual and an auditory component. And then there are times there are videos that the children are watching to learn the strategies that they need to use. Some days we use a kit, and the kits are great because everything you need is right there. You don't need any extra materials. It's ready to go. You're not running and making copies or anything like that. And the program also has additional online resources that you can take and maybe use those in your small group instruction.
Okay, so when you were talking, doing this type of a foundational program is starting to impact other things that we do, and small group instruction is where we're seeing teachers really leverage their expertise to differentiate for students. I think one thing that is great about the program is that in the past we might have given teachers some standards. And then they would have to spend a lot of time kind of developing lessons and finding materials and going to the laminator and making, and what's great about this is it's all there. And I think it's especially important if we think about the fact that we have students sometimes that are in more than one school in a given school year. So if they move from a school that's using the program to another school that's using the program, there's some consistency of program for kids. And I think that's an important consideration. So Jen, in addition to the professional learning that's going to occur in the spring for teachers, what else do we have to do?
Well, one of the things we'll be working on this summer is to revise the curriculum and assessments for English language arts.
So we're going to need curriculum writers for that. So if
Yes.
there are any teachers out there who are interested in doing that work, we'll certainly be posting that. I would also want to point out, your field test schools for Phonics Suite, and we appreciate that. But for our viewers, we actually added Phonics Suite to a number of schools in January, and then the remainder of those schools will come on next fall. So those teachers will have an opportunity to use these materials. So our goal is to eliminate the achievement gap here in Frederick County Public Schools. And I think building these evidence-based practices into our work has been an important first step. I'm really proud of the work that our literacy leaders and our teachers and our administrators are doing. And so I want to give a shout out and a thank you to them. I wanted to thank the three of you for joining me today on this episode of Vision 2020 about reading. And I wanted to thank our viewers for joining us. If you have any questions or comments about today's Vision 2020 program, you can reach out via email at vision2020@fcps.org. Thank you for joining us.